Picture two people drinking from the same contaminated water source. One walks away with a mild stomach ache. The other ends up severely dehydrated within hours. Same bacteria, same exposure, completely different outcome. The difference wasn't luck. It was written in their blood type this whole time. Your blood type isn't random luck. It's a trade you didn't know you made. Type O blood protects you from one of history's deadliest threats, malaria. But that same blood type leaves you wide open to two completely different problems: cholera and a stomach bug called norovirus. Same blood, two opposite outcomes. And that's not even the whole story, because your blood type also quietly shifts your risk for heart problems and even certain cancers. Once you understand why, you'll never think of blood type as just a label again. We usually treat blood type like a random tag. Something you check before a transfusion. A B, OB, O, that's it. Right, actually, blood type is way more than a label. It's a molecular ID card your cells carry everywhere, not just on your red blood cells, on the lining of your gut, in your saliva. In fact, roughly 1 in 5 people don't release these molecules into their saliva or gut at all. Scientists call them non-secretors. And that single genetic difference can change how vulnerable someone is to certain infections, almost independently of blood type itself. Scientists call these molecules HBGAs, histoblood group antigens, tiny sugar structures sitting on the surface of your cells. Your body builds them using a specific set of genetic instructions. Different instructions create different final shapes. Type A, Type B, Type O has the simplest shape, just the base structure, with nothing extra added. Here's the strange part. These molecules were never designed to determine your blood type. That's just a side effect. Their real job is far more complicated. They act like flags your own body reads, and flags other organisms can read too. That single detail changes everything, because if something else can read these flags, it can also use them. Some pathogens have learned to recognize this exact shape. They use it as a docking station, a way to attach, a way to get in. Which brings us to the first half of the trade-off: blood clotting. Every time you get a small cut, your blood needs to clot quickly. A protein called von Willebrand factor helps make that happen. It grabs onto damaged blood vessels and helps platelets stick together. Here's where blood type enters the picture. People with type A, B, or AB blood tend to carry more of this protein. Type O blood carries noticeably less. Less von Willebrand factor usually means slower clotting, which sounds like a disadvantage until you flip the picture around. Slower clotting also means lower chances of a clot forming somewhere it shouldn't. One large study followed more than 50,000 people for years. Researchers found that non-O blood types were linked to about 9% more cardiovascular deaths and roughly double the risk of dangerous blood clots called venous thrombosis. Type O blood appeared to carry the lower risk. There's a possible second layer here too. Some research has connected higher levels of this same protein with a greater risk of cognitive decline later in life, which would mean the clotting story doesn't stop at the heart. It may quietly reach all the way to the brain. So type O looks like the clear winner here. Better clotting profile, lower cardiovascular risk, but remember those flags. We talked about this is where the story flips completely, because the same simple structure that gives type O its clotting advantage is also easier for certain pathogens to grab onto. Take cholera. The bacteria behind cholera release a toxin. That toxin needs a docking point to enter your intestinal cells. Think of it like a key searching for the right lock. Type O's simpler sugar structure happens to be an easier lock to open. It gives that toxin an easier grip. Studies from cholera outbreak regions have found people with type O blood tend to develop more severe symptoms. Now take norovirus, the virus behind most stomach bugs worldwide. Norovirus also binds to these same surface molecules, and type O individuals are consistently found to be more susceptible to infection. Two different pathogens, same entry point, same blood type paying the price. There's another twist. Hiding in the data, some large studies have also linked non-O blood types to a higher risk of stomach cancer, while certain other cancers appear slightly less common in people with type B blood. Nobody fully understands why yet, but the same antigens involved in clotting and infection also sit on the cells lining your stomach, so the trade-off runs deeper than just heart disease and infections. Now back to the biggest twist of all, because nature rarely gives without taking something back. That same shape that helps cholera and norovirus get inside works against one of the most persistent parasites in human history, malaria. The parasite behind severe malaria needs red blood cells to clump together, a process called rosetting. Infected cells grab healthy ones and pull them into a cluster, like a single infected cell recruiting a small crowd around it. Those clusters can clog. Tiny blood vessels, cutting off oxygen to vital organs. Non-O blood types allow this clumping easily. Type O blood resists it. The sugar structure is simply too plain for the cells to grip onto, which means the infected cells struggle to cluster, and severe malaria becomes less likely. In parts of the world where malaria has killed for thousands of years, type O blood shows up far more often than anywhere else. Researchers believe centuries of relentless malaria may have pushed entire populations toward this blood type. So now the full trade-off comes into view. Type O lower clotting risk, lower cardiovascular risk, higher vulnerability to cholera and norovirus, strong resistance to malaria. Non-O types, higher clotting activity, higher cardiovascular risk, lower vulnerability to cholera and norovirus, less resistance to malaria. Neither option is simply good or simply bad. Each one is a different survival strategy, shaped by whichever threats your ancestors faced most. If cholera and severe diarrhea were constant threats, carrying non-O blood may have mattered more. If malaria was the bigger killer, type O blood may have mattered more. Your blood type today is basically a fossil, a record of the pressures your ancestors survived. Hospitals already ask for your blood type before almost any surgery. But almost nobody explains why it might matter far beyond the operating room. Some doctors are now exploring whether blood type could become one more piece of the puzzle, alongside cholesterol and blood pressure, when estimating a person's cardiovascular risk. None of this means your blood type controls your future. Diet, movement, sleep, and dozens of other factors still shape your health far more directly, but it does mean those 4 letters on your ID card were never arbitrary. They were never just about transfusions. They're a signature left behind by every threat that almost wiped out the people who came before you. Cholera didn't get them. Malaria didn't get them. And whatever trade-off their blood made is the same trade-off sitting inside you right now. They're a leftover strategy, written by thousands of years of invisible back and forth between your cells and the organisms trying to enter them. Next time someone asks your blood type, you're not just naming a category, you're naming a trade-off your ancestors made for you, long before you were ever born.